Actually, the subject wise, the subject is extremely good as far as the welding and developing a sound weld joint is concerned. So the idea here is to see really as a welding engineer what we can do so that joint not just performs or gives the required mechanical strength but also performs for longer time. This is the idea. Okay. So how that can be facilitated, because it is not that easy. It is not, welding is not just about the depositing a metal to make a connection, but to idea is to see that the joint is technologically sound so that it really performs under critical conditions. That is more important. So like many joints which are used in thermal power plants, which experience very hostile condition, like very high temperature, sulfur, carbon dioxide, uh, carbon deposits. So a very unfavorable condition, even like in petrochemical there and in food processing industry, the H2SO4 came, HCl, all those come in contact of the weld joint. So if it is simple ambient condition, maybe just any roadside welder can do the job, and it will perform for maybe 20 years, nobody cares. But when a joint is exposed to the very critical conditions like very high fatigue, very high temperature, very corrosive media, or very erosive media, like it's a lot of hydropower plant weld joints where silt will be coming across the weld joint, so that will be eroding the weld. So the job of welding engineers is to develop the weld joints for especially critical applications. You must have heard like many bridges fail even during the demonstration or during the trial stage. Although earlier the bridges were not constructed using the welding, but recently due to the development of technology they have allowed the bridge fabrication using the welding also. Otherwise you would have seen earlier there were just the riveted joints, like old Allahabad or Howrah, all those are the riveted bridges, no? But of late, like say in last 5 to 10 years, the even government of India has allowed. So to make a welded bridge, it is important that it is sound, it is good. So, but whenever you see the life is related with anything, so it is critical. The property is another, but it is secondary. You can earn property, but not life. So, like whether it is a spacecraft or aircraft or bridges or nuclear power plants, wherever it is related with a threat to the life, those joints must be technically sound and must be safe. Otherwise, people will say, okay, let us use something else, let's forget about the welding. So, the welding is not just about the joining, but it is about developing a technically sound joint so that it can really perform for long and it is safe for the property as well as for life. And in this connection, welding metallurgy plays a very big role. Why it is so? The reason is very simple, that like if you take the two components to be joined like this, and just by putting them together, if they can be joined, it is the best option. But दुनिया में कुछ नहीं होता अपने आप ना. You see, you need to do something. So just by putting the two things together, joint will not be formed unless it is slip gauges kind of thing, where like the two things come very close and they get joined, but the joint strength is not very good for mechanical loads, right? So we have to do something. So another best option is, apart from putting the two things together, another best option is what? Like, let's put some chemical. So you put adhesive, so Fevicol, MG, etc. These are the examples. These will develop some kind of joint. Maybe under compression they will work much better, because there is under compression things work better. because the chances for the crack, nucleation and fracture are very less. Under the tensile and shear, they don't work very effectively. So the advantage of putting adhesive and chemicals etc. is that you don't damage the two components much. Actually, there is no damage as such, except some chemicals are placed at the surface, and through some chemical reactions the joint is developed. But on the other hand, if you see, if this is still not workable because the joint strength is poor, they will not work above 100 degrees centigrade, they will be degraded easily under the water or chemicals. So what is the best way now? Now you have to look for some other options which are more workable. What are those other options? Like you apply the heat with the two components. So heat will be leading to the fusion of the edges, and once the fusion takes place, then the two components will be edges will be coming to the molten state, and after solidification they will be giving you the metallic continuity. This metallic continuity we call as a weld joint. So that will be realized only after the solidification. But for fusion you have to supply heat to the metallic components, which are mostly thermal conducting. So heat is dissipated towards the sides. So this whatever heat dissipation is taking place, this is bad. So you are applying heat primarily to ensure the fusion, but part of heat is getting dissipated to the base metal, which is changing its character, changing its microstructure, changing its mechanical properties, changing its corrosion resistance. So things get affected, and you cannot do much for that. So the problem is not the welding, problem is the zone which is being affected due to the application of heat. So that is the culprit. All technology behind the welding heavily works on the HZ side. So now what we can do to reduce the damage? So the best possible thing, if you realize here also, if you supply 2 kilojoule per mm heat, lot of heat, then lot of heat will be dissipated. The weld size will also be large. Okay, if you supply just half a kilojoule per mm, like using lasers, or 0.1 kilojoule per mm, you will find very small narrow weld, very less heat will be transferred towards the base metal. So the affected zone will be less. So the one way is this: let us reduce the heat. So how can we reduce the heat? Those are the technological parts we'll be coming across subsequently, and that primarily depends on the power density associated with the particular welding process. High power density like laser and electron beam, they need less heat to diffuse and develop a weld joint as compared to the low power density processes like gas welding or simple sealed metal arc welding process. So in those cases, low power density welding processes need more heat, need to supply more heat. So more heat affected zone, more weld size, larger weld size. Okay, so that is not good actually. So that's why you must have heard like laser and electron beam offer the good better weld joints as compared to the sealed metal arc welding or gas welding or even GMAW. This is the main reason, because your weld size is very small and heat affected zone is also small. Okay, so this is one thing as far as the heat is concerned. But there's another dimension to this that will be affecting the joint quality, and that also has to be considered. So we need to understand really what are the changes taking place in the heat affected zone because of the heat or because of the pressure. So that has to be considered. Okay, another important side is like whenever you fuse anything, metal becomes at high temp, metal is heated and it comes to the molten state. So one becomes very sensitive or prone to the reactions. So hot molten metal, when exposed to the environmental gases, it becomes sensitive for the interactions. Maybe it will first it will get dissolved, then it will react also, like oxides, nitrides will be formed. So either if the gases are getting dissolved, that is not good, or if these gases are interacting with the metal forming oxides and nitrides, that is also not good. Okay, so in totality these will be appearing as a porosity or inclusions. So we have to seal, we have to protect the weld from these atmospheric gases. So the
Yes.
different processes offer the different kind of the protection. So another aspect of welding metallurgy is to see like how the different gases are interacting, how the gases are getting dissolved, what we can do to reduce the defects arising due to these gases also. Okay, many defects arise due to the compositional problems, so those are will also be talked. So that is about the weld metal. Okay, how does it solidify? That is another side. I will talk in detail about the different aspects. Then the like I was talking about the different category of the joint, how the joints are developed. So this was about the fusion category. There is one more somewhat better category, that is the force. Like you put the two things together and join like this, no? So this is like you just twist the wires so the joint is developed. This is also mechanical joint. But here there is no metallurgical joint, it is just like mechanical one where mechanical interlocking is taking place. To have a metallurgical joint using the force, it is important that you just keep on hammering until the joint is developed, like forged joints. Na? You heat them together and keep on hammering so that the joint is developed. So that is a metallurgical joint. All your roll bonding, you must have seen, put the two sheets together and roll them. So they will also come very close. Although part of metallurgical joint, part of mechanical joint, because micro level asperities they come and join together. But the most commonly like the friction welding, friction ester welding, ultrasonic welding, those are the pressure based techniques where you put the two things together and you try to deform the interface, either using the deformation of micro level like 2-3 micrometer deformation in ultrasonic welding. In explosive welding processes the deformation is very limited, but it is deformation is there of 2-3 micrometer only at the interface, just like this. Okay.
Right.
Then there is a bulk deformation based processes like friction welding, you keep on rubbing so 1 mm is lost. In friction ester welding, forge welding, those are the bulk deformation based process where like earlier it was of 10 mm, now it has reduced to the 8 mm. So
Yeah.
this is macro kind of thing. uh, you know so more the deformation, more the heat, more the deformation, greater the changes in the metal. But most of the time these changes are favorable in deformation based processes. For example, when you deform any metal, it gets hardened because of strain hardening, and when it is hardened, it gets strengthened. Only problem is that sometimes it loses the ductility and toughness. Okay, so if you take steel and develop the weld joint using the deformation based process, what you will notice that the joint as well as the area next to the joint has got strengthened, and sometimes strengthening is so high that it loses its toughness. The steel which was of toughness of say 150 joules now is reduced to the like say just 10 joule, 15 joule. So when the embrittlement or the too much hardening takes place. Okay, so but in most of the cases where either hardening is not that detrimental, but important requirement for deformation based processes is what, metal should be able to deform. For taking a lecture, what is important, there has to be at least one student, isn't it? Similarly, for developing a joint, by the deformation based process, metal should deform. So if you cannot deform, then there is a problem. So that is why bulk deformation you cannot apply for metals like cast iron or very high strength metals which show very limited ductility. But certainly they can be applied for say diffusion based process, because it is based on diffusion, not the deformation. So you put the two things together in very smooth polished condition, and so the diffusion from one side to another takes place, and that in turn leads to the a development of the joint through the metallurgical continuity. Okay, so whenever we'll see that we are applying force for developing a weld joint, so the bulk deformation or micro level deformation will be taking place. So these will be changing the weld zone primarily, because when you deform, grains will be elongated, their aspect ratio will change, the size will change, and sometimes these get refined because they are so much deformed that the grain which was there earlier of say 10 micrometer, now 50 micrometer, now it will be reduced to like say 5 micrometer or even 3 micrometer. So maybe 10 to 15 times reduction can take place due to this large scale deformation. Okay, so it is important like that, depending upon the kind of approach we are using, either we are applying heat or we are applying force for developing a weld joint, this will be heat will be changing the heat affected zone, but bulk deformation, deformation based process will be changing just the weld zone, unless much of the heat is generated, because in friction some heat is generated, so some obviously heat affected zone will be formed, but it is not that high as it used to be in other cases. Like in other cases it may be too high, like in fusion welding the heat affected zone is very wide, but in friction welding or in friction solid state related joining process it may not be that high. Okay, so what is the role of physical metallurgy? So this is the background only, like how the joint is developed. When you apply heat, obviously some metallurgical changes will be taking place. So what is the basic principle of these changes? That is what we try to understand the physical metallurgy. Like if you talk of the physical metallurgy, like in steels, it is the basic thing is iron carbon diagram, which will show at which temperature what will be formed. Okay, then there is a CCT diagram, continuous cooling transformation diagram. It will tell you how the change in cooling rate will be affecting the different phases which will be formed. Then there is a triple T diagram, like constant temperature exposure at particular temperature, how it will change the phases. It's an isothermal transformation. So likewise Schaeffler diagram will indicate with the change of composition how the phases are going to change. Like if there is one steel, two steels of the same type, two components of the same steel, say martensitic stainless steel, when you use a third type of filler, composition gets modified. So considering this situation, for a given composition of the weld, what will be the phases in the weld? So that is what you can estimate. Many things we can estimate considering the circumstantial condition, like heat or the composition. So if you know, you can anticipate. Like if someone tells like high carbon steel is heated and cooled, cooled rapidly, so obviously martensite will be formed. So what is the fundamental logic behind the change which is taking place in the weld whenever either you apply heat or you apply pressure? So what are the fundamental logics? That is what is to be understood, and in that one welding metallurgy helps a lot. Okay, so the second is like metal strengthening mechanism. As I said, there are 5 metal strengthening mechanisms mainly. One is like say solid solution strengthening, where you do alloying. Like if your base metal is weak, so you fuse and add the alloying element that you want to add, so you get the required strength, required hardness, required wear resistance, required corrosion resistance. So you alter the properties as per your need by alloying. But solid solution strengthening primarily works on the addition of alloying elements in a metal which is poor in strength, so that can be done in weld as well. Okay, then second is like the grain refinement, which is important in welding, because normally rolling and the casting processes, they result in somewhat larger grains. Okay, so when we perform the welding, welding usually offers much higher cooling rate than these two processes, and because of that, whenever the component is welded, structure mostly in weld gets refined. You get much finer grains, and that's why most of the time joint is much stronger than the base metals most of the time. Okay, so grain refinement, grain refinement is important in welding because your grains are refined and that alters the joint properties. You know, finer grains are better properties that you know from Hall patch relationship. Okay, third is like a precipitation hardening. in precipitation hardening, like there are certain metals, aluminum alloy, there are precipitation hardening steels also, stainless steel also, cobalt alloys, magnesium alloys, copper alloys, in which the alloying elements are such that when you heat and cool rapidly, after cooling either at room temperature or little higher temperature, they form certain precipitates, and those help in increasing the strength. So in welding, how it is important, like a metal has got very good precipitate, it is very of good strength, but when you apply heat, everything gets dissolved, so your precipitates are lost and you get weak strength, low strength. So precipitation strengthening in welding is coming due to the weakening only. So what we can do to restore, that is the heat treatment aspect. But the primary idea of talking about the precipitation strengthening in welding is like those metals which are strengthened by precipitation hardening, when they are welded, they lose their strength. This is the main idea. Okay, so how to restore, what we can do, that is another thing although. So we have to understand really when it metal strength, precipitation strengthened metal is welded, what will be happening to it. Okay, the fourth category is the work hardening or strain hardening. Many metals are designed to get strengthened by the work hardening only, which means by developing the dislocations, inducing the dislocations. So you know, you must have heard the word like recovery or annihilation, right? Annihilation or recovery. What is that? Like dislocations are induced in a metal by the deformation. When you put it at little higher temperature, like say 200 degrees centigrade, 300 degrees centigrade, all these dislocations are annihilated or lost or vanished. Okay.
Yes.
So what happens, like once your dislocations are lost, then you lose your strength, because that was the reason behind its strength only. Okay, so it is important that whatever strength has been lost, that is restored somehow. But in welding it is not possible, because once it has been welded, you cannot go for rolling again. The metallic components which have been strengthened by the deformation based process, when they are subjected to the welding, they lose their strength. This is the main thing. So we find that the joint is just by fusion welding, the joint weld is weak and heat affected zone is also weak. But when the same metal is welded by the deformation based processes, then you will find that welding is strong and the base metal is weak. So are you getting this? Is just opposite.
Yes.
So work hardened metal, when subjected to the welding by fusion welding process, the weld and heat affected zone is weakened, right? But when work hardened or strengthened metal welded by the fusion, deformation based process, deformation based process like friction welding or ultrasonic welding or explosive welding, you will find that the weld is strong than the heat affected zone and the base metal. Okay, because the deformation has strengthened those metals. Okay, so this is the logic behind the work hardening. The fifth one, which is not used much, that is the dispersion hardening. Dispersion hardening, like you introduce some of the particles of your choice for increasing, say, electrical conductivity. We use graphite. For lubrication, we use molybdenum dye, molybdenum sulfide, or for lubrication the graphite as well, because graphite acts as a solid lubricant. So molybdenum sulfide and the graphite, these are the two components which are very commonly used. So you put them in the weld. This is not a strengthening, this is like targeting for desired properties, electrical conductivity or your lubrication. But for strengthening, you need to introduce the particles which really can offer the higher hardness. So we'll be adding the tungsten carbide, titanium carbide, so something which is stable at a high temperature. When introduced in the weld metal, they don't lose their identity, they retain their hardness and other characteristics. And when on the solidification, the weld will be giving you the required joint properties. Similarly, nowadays people use like solid state processes for developing the composites by using the concept of dispersion hardening only. So what they do, like they take a component, they put the particles by drilling a hole or slot they put the hard particles and then they deform it at the surface, so that everything gets mixed up and the surface is of the higher hardness, of higher wear resistance, higher strength, like that. So the dispersion hardening is used for surface modification primarily, or for altering some other properties, okay, like electrical conductivity or the lubrication. So these that was what about the strength, metal strengthening mechanism. The next chapter is like I have already shown you. I'll share you this. The content is also available in the website, also in our department website as well. So the heat treatment of the weld joint is important. Like I have talked about, when you apply heat or when you apply the pressure or deformation based approach, when you are using and if it is generating heat due to the friction, then that will also be producing the heat affected zone. So when you get a certain properties after the welding which are not good, and you want to restore the properties either similar to the earlier one or you want to improve upon further, we apply heat treatments. Okay, now heat treatments are same, like you can do the annealing to restore the toughness. You can do the normalizing for hardening purpose, or strengthening purpose. Now hardening, quenching we don't apply normally in the welded joints. Tempering is very frequently applied because you lose toughness in the steels. So the weld joints are tempered. Okay, so these are the simple heat treatment processes. For aluminium alloys or precipitation strengthening alloys, like there is a T4 heat treatment, T6 heat treatment. For aluminium alloys, copper alloys, magnesium alloys, these are precipitation hardenable alloys. So since weld joint will be loosening the strength due to the loss of precipitates, so you want to reintroduce those, redevelop those precipitates through the heat treatment. So it is important that that the heat treatment is done properly of the weld joint, so that the joint properties are restored which were adversely affected due to the either application of heat or either application of the force or deformation. Then there is a solidification of the weld metal, like it is about just the fusion weld joints. In fusion weld joints, like there are two ways to make a weld joint. Like what is that? You take the two components like this, okay, and then apply heat, so they fuse. So one thing is this, like two same type of components are used, A and A both side. So whatever is the composition of this, same is the composition of this, and same will be the composition of the weld metal which is being produced. So you have the same parent metal, both the sides, and same weld metal, right? So it doesn't require any nucleation. There is a direct growth of the weld grains in the, because you have partially solid grains, partially melted grains, you can say. So those grains act as a nucleant. So in this situation, when the two same type of parent metals are used, same is the weld metal, no filler metal, like you take thin sheets and do the laser or do the TIG. So just a weld metal is formed, no other addition from the outside in form of filler. So in this situation, mostly this is called like autogeneous welding.
Yes.
And in this case, the solidification occurs by the epitaxial. This is called epitaxial solidification, where there is just growth only, there is no nucleation, right? Otherwise, conventional solidification take place through the nucleation and growth. So this is important thing. The second is, so how things solidify. Like, you know, this is the kind of weld. So this is the fusion boundary, both the sides, okay. So the solidification cooling conditions are changing continuously from the weld to the fusion from the fusion boundary to the weld center. So cooling rate is maximum at the weld center. This is confusing little bit most of the time to the students. Minimum cooling rate is at the fusion boundary and maximum cooling rate is observed at the weld center, right? And that's why the finest grains will be there at the weld center and the largest grains will be there at the fusion boundary, even in the weld metal, right? So so what are the different intricacies related to the solidification and how does it help in getting the sound weld joint? It is important. So those things we will be talking under the solidification of the weld metal. How does it solidify? So I've talked about autogenesis, but when you add filler, obviously the conventional nucleation and the growth, the phenomena will be taking place for the solidification. So what are the different modes of the solidification? That is another important thing about which we'll be talking. That helps in developing the sound weld joint. Next is the HHZ and weld joint characteristics. I have already said that this is also a very important, very good thing. Like after the fusion boundary, there are different. Obviously, with the increasing distance from the fusion boundary, your temperature will be decreasing, isn't it? This is the fusion
Yes.
boundary. So on moving away from the fusion boundary, temperature will be decreasing. So it is not just the temperature which decreases. It is also the heating rate which is decreasing. It is cooling rate which is decreasing. It is the peak temperature which is decreasing. There are many things which are different at each location. And because of this, metallurgically and mechanically, the second last chapter is about that only. Then metallurgical issues, like when the different metals are welded, you have a heat effective zone in the weld. So because of the cooling rate, because of the interactions with the environmental gases, because of the solidification issues, so what are the different metallurgical problems which are encountered leading to the development of defect? The mechanisms and the remedies of the defects or the issues related with the welding, about that will be talked. Although our goal is not to talk about the defects, because but if we understand what is leading to the kind of defects, then probably we can eliminate. Okay. This is about the content, or in general the idea about the subject and its importance. As far as the books are concerned, like AWS handbook is the one thing, maybe that is available in soft copies, also available, and you can see the there is a AWS handbook. There is a volume 1, 2, 3. That's the latest one. So maybe you can check. One is in one of the handbook, there is a welding metallurgy chapter only, which is about 50-60 pages. So that's really good. Okay. Then another one is the Sendo Cow is extremely good book. Sendo Cow Welding Metallurgy. It is a Wiley publication from US. And in our library also we have Kenneth Easterling, Introduction to the Physical Metallurgy of Welding, Physical Metallurgy of the Welding. And the Lancaster was the first book. That is also a good book. So these are the few books. If you want to see the basics, basics of the physical metallurgy, then SD Avener was the Introduction to the Physical Metallurgy. That was one book. Well, most of the time students study that in our UG programs also. So, but because CCT